Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded February 16th, 2022. Good evening, Brody. Good evening, Rod. Good evening, Franklin. How's everybody doing?
Super duper.
Okay. Yeah,
Everybody's
good.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
it's fair. Life is fair, right? Unless it happens to me first.
No, life is unfair. I've learned that the older I get, but
Oh, it's fair to me. Unless something bad happens to me first. Let it happen to somebody else first. I want to be the first. But Ed was killed by a wombat. He's the first person ever killed by a wombat. Like, don't let me be. My life is so unlucky that animals that have no aggression toward humans will be one of the things that get me. This animal has never exhibited any aggression in his entire existence, yet it dismembered Ed.
Just never bare your teeth at anything that's looking at you. How about that?
That's true, though. I call myself doing that to a dog that I didn't know. It did not like that.
Yeah.
Something else. Don't blink fast at cats. They don't like that either.
Don't blink. Well, I would absolutely do that then.
Wombats are moderately dangerous according to the internet, so I'd be careful, Ed.
I can tell you this: you'll be dangerous for a little while, because the next video would be, wow, there really are 1,000 ways to skin a cat.
I think what Ed's
wombat.
saying, he's so unlucky that a wombat would show up in Atlanta just for
Yes.
him.
Yeah, from the zoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And get him.
Ed was killed by a horseshoe crab. What? I gotta tell you now about a horseshoe crab. Oh man. But no, things good this week. Did some stuff, learned some stuff. A lot of new analytic rules that I actually went through before implementing them, helping the customer implement them. Came into the customer name. We're in the middle of a POC. Not in the middle, we're on the backside of it where I can hand them off to CXC for the more advanced stuff and really go from a POC to a POV or a POU, proof of use case. You have to be very careful when you're working with security teams who are not in charge of the cloud environment. The cloud team blew away the entire 2 months worth of Sentinel work that we had. Gone.
Just didn't
'Cause
like
they
that
put it in-
resource group and was like, nah, gone.
Gone. They run this thing that scrubs what they call the sandbox. So the sandbox is staging before production. So when they saw this, because they hadn't involved anybody, they're like, these guys are here, man. Gone.
Racking up charges. Let's get rid of it. Yikes.
It's a big customer. So I said, well, let's look at it from this perspective. We're going to see if I was a good instructor, a good purveyor of knowledge, and I showed you guys stuff. Build it back up to the way we had it, and then come
Great
back.
consulting answer. Yeah.
Well,
And then they go, we'll take that challenge on. We'll get it built all the way back up, the way you had it, connectors, rules, the queries that either you gave us or that we wrote, and we'll get it right back, and we'll reach back out to you when we're ready to go. This will teach us, because you held our hand the whole time. Now we're going to do it from scratch. So we took a bad and we did it. And then we went and got the cloud principal architect, the GA guy, and got him involved now. So he modified the Azure policy to exclude that resource group when they do their 60-day, they just scrub.
No resource locks.
Can you
They don't-
recover
the
from
secu-
that? After you get past are you sure you want to delete this resource group? Could you technically file a ticket to get that recovered?
I don't know. I would suspect you could, but
Within a certain time frame,
the
probably.
security team knew that this was an issue. So they were like, hey, we're very time sensitive on this. I'm like, all right. I'm thinking money. We got them into the sponsorship program where they get 25 grand to spend so we can get them. But they had totally forgot that there's an automated process that cloud policy team, it just run. No human went and did it. It did it.
Are you
so
starting
they
to
tried to
store Sentinel and all your analytical rules as code in a repo to be able to rebuild these things now? Is that the best practices?
Yes. Yeah. So what's happened is they're going to take a little bit longer because they're going to go and involve the develop team, and they're going to deploy Sentinel in a CI/CD and thing, so that repository is in Azure DevOps now. And so whatever happens, they still have it, and they can push it back down to code.
And
so,
does it automatically, when you make changes in the UI, will that write back to the DevOps environment? So it's keeping like a change log of everything?
well, ideally, if you're making changes that are affecting the actual deployment and the infrastructure that is Sentinel, virtual as it is, you do it from CI/CD. You don't
Right,
get in
right.
there and do it. But there
Okay.
is a configuration pullback.
Okay.
Now, I'm not
Sweet.
skilled enough in Azure DevOps, but when they showed me this, or actually when I went to the tech community and I watched it, there is bilateral to see change differences in deltas. And so you can
Nice.
push down and you can probably do it without a confirm, but to pull up, you have to confirm that you want to pull the changes, and it doesn't put it in the main branch. It puts it in the sub branch. So you see all these different ones right up underneath. Right. So I was
That's
like,
cool.
I haven't played in Azure DevOps, man, in 2 years when I used to have to do it, which is a total another story. Frank, do you remember a product that Microsoft had? I'm sure you do. Remember Fish Hunter?
We got Rod's back, so now we have the echoing.
Rod's Echo. Welcome, Rod's Echo.
Doesn't
the
care
call.
about it. No professionalism. He doesn't care.
Let's all just keep saying Echo until it fixes it.
Echo,
Echo,
echo, echo,
echo,
echo, echo,
echo,
echo,
echo,
echo,
I'm
echo,
working on it.
echo.
Oh, Frank will cut that out. No problem.
No, I'm keeping it in.
All right, guys. Brody, you first. Anything interesting you want to talk about?
Well, first off, cool story. Yeah, really, that's really interesting. I'm also getting involved in a project where it's agile focused, and we're going to be using Azure DevOps to manage and organize everything moving forward, which is new for me. So slightly different use of Azure DevOps, but still cool. You're learning that. What else? I'm working a lot with a financial institution on a lot of data loss prevention aspects, and I closed off a big security and compliance assessment last week. So very happy. That was the biggest customer I've ever worked with, and there was a lot of eyes on that. So I'm stoked it went well. Maybe they'll invite me back for more. And what else? Oh, well, and it's Spark Week. So Spark's internal, for those who maybe don't know, Spark is an internal Microsoft community week where tons of folks from the product team or consultants or just people from all over the organization talk to different technical or non-technical things. So I've been moderating a few of those sessions, and that's been really fun. Actually, Nathan Swift was on a Sentinel one last night, and he came off mute at the end to say hi. And then like, hey, Nathan, come back on the pod sometime soon. And then other people were like, oh, you're on a podcast? And so I got to give our info out. And now the identity team at Microsoft, Frank Grimes, who runs that, he said, let me have you come on in April, 5 minutes, talk about the podcast, and then maybe we can get some folks from our team to come on the podcast at one point, because the identity team's growing in Microsoft and it's separate from security and compliance. So good. Thanks everybody for letting me co-host and network, because it's been great. We get to all learn and meet new people through this and other avenues. So it's been a chiller week than the last few, which I enjoyed. So yeah.
Frank's good people. He's a good guy. You know Frank for a little bit. He's that's how I met
I'm here, right? Oh no, different Frank. Sorry,
different Frank, not the Popeye's chicken Frank, or the Frank that doesn't come meet Ed that flew into DC to see him. Not that Franklin.
Mr. Grimes, you mean? Yeah.
Frank's pulled me out of a couple of situations. He actually was the one that introduced me to Alex Simon. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Good person to know. Yeah.
When they used to have Identicon up in DC, Identa something, all about identity.
Yeah.
That's literally, it's Identa something. But no, real good stuff, man. Yeah. Franklin, what about yourself, man? You text me today frustrated, and I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, yeah, I know it doesn't work that way.
So I've been in some meetings, and I'm frustrated about many different things. But someone said that, what was it? What was the question I had for you?
Does MDI feed signals into Azure Active Directory Identity Protection? No.
Interesting.
Franklin, did you have a senior moment?
Yeah, no, I was waiting for Rod to say something, but I could see that he's actually still trying to get his computer to work right. So there you go. Yeah. So no, I was thinking about it. It's like yeah, no. So in the meeting, somebody said that. I'm like, I never knew that that was the case. Could you provide some documentation about that? Because I'd like to learn more. And they couldn't find anything because I just don't see the connection. I can, maybe if the Active Directory account that's synchronized with the Azure Active Directory account, maybe it's at that point in time, if it's considered compromised in Defender for Identity, it could actually at that point in time send a signal about its related Azure identity to say, hey, there could be a problem here, and then they become a risky user.
Well,
I think that might be realistic.
well,
They both feed the M365 Defender portal, right? So
They
you
do,
can
but
but not
but-
the way that you described originally. I don't think.
the orchestrator or the traffic cop is MCAS from MDI and Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. They feed into that because they look at identity anomaly. So if you look at the integration, both of those feed into that. That's why when you open up an investigation from an Azure Active Directory identity thing or do a verified user compromise, MCAS will oftentimes pop up. If you an MDI for especially when they say you want to do an investigation, he said, do you want to investigate this user, try the new experience? It's not new anymore. It pops you over to MCAS. So MCAS is a coordinator of identity-based alerts like that. They don't feed into each other and they go into it. And Sentinel is just a catch-all for those type of things because it can then take the analytic rules, fusion rules, and then they can do the correlation stitching for you. But there is no direct communication. I'll say that. I'll say that with authority. There is no integration between MDI and Azure Active Directory Protection. Reason being is you can deploy one of the other without, but I think sometimes our SKUs make you think they're independent because you generally don't get MDI without having P2, P5.
But I think it would be a good thing if they did actually, if you have a compromise, an Active Directory ID that's considered compromised, I think it should set the person as a risky user.
Yeah,
Well,
that's fair.
they do two different things. MDI, you need to go back to what is the function of this? So whenever I want to see if something talks and get along, I go look at Azure Active Directory Identity Protection standalone. If I didn't have anything with that, tell me what that does. Then I go look at MDI. And then I look at the similarities and I look at the differences. And I'm like, oh, okay. When I think, AADIP, I'm thinking risky logins, user risk. MDI doesn't care about that.
But Frank's got a point, right? If the local AD account is potentially compromised and that's syncing to the tenant through Azure AD, that should flag it as such so that Azure Active Directory can say, hey, user risk level is increased, and then that feeds conditional access policies, et cetera, to do whatever, right? If that's not something that's in place today, it should be, I would think.
So you're saying where should that alert come? Should it expose it on-prem before it hits the cloud, or should it as it traverses to the cloud? Is that where the alert? Because obviously
It just sets the user risk level.
Yeah,
That's all.
Well, but yeah, you can set policy to alert you on certain risk levels, right?
But will a local Active Directory account potential compromise adjust the cloud-based identity user risk level without any customization?
Yes.
Cool.
It
If
is
that's
really
the case, I
based
don't know.
on,
I don't know the answer. Okay.
You just changed your mind then.
I did change my mind, but I'm thinking about deployment scenarios. Without you doing a bunch of stuff in Intune/MEM and two other things, they will not, there is no correlation like that. What you're talking, you're thinking that should operate out of the box because this assuming that you have almost everybody's using AD connector and the hybrid, either the migration synchronous accounts.
Right.
There are some things that you have to do, and you still have to come in and be a human to understand the correlation between both. If I had to just put it in a layman's way, it is possible for me to hack your cloud identities and your on-premise stuff not know. And it's also possible for me to lateral move through your on-premise and your cloud identity don't know. You really need Intune and M to sort of look at that. And then you're looking at ASR rules, a bunch of other things that are in place. So now you're just building more tripwires. But if you were to deploy them, and we'll get an MDI person on. Joe's already volunteered to come back on.
If there's an alert on an identity in Active Directory that's synced with Azure Active Directory, I want that account in Azure Active Directory to have a higher risk level.
Which makes sense, right? And if we're feeding all that telemetry and like, if we're supposed to be collecting all that telemetry and feeding it to the Defender portal or eventually Sentinel anyway, then it shouldn't be two isolated events like, hey, something's going on with this on-prem identity. And it's up to the human to correlate. There should be some auto correlation that goes on, to Frank's point.
But that's not what MDI is for. It is looking at directory-based premise extension accounts, regardless of the hybrid configuration, to look at things that Frank is really good at. Lateral movement, escalation, hash passing, over the hash passing, key attacks. Azure Active Directory Identity Protection wouldn't even understand that.
Correct.
So
That's
that's
our
right.
E5 customer.
I am just trying to assign a risk level to the Azure Active Directory account. That's all that I'm doing, based upon their synchronized AD account with any sort of alerts or activities going on with that. So I'm just adjusting their risk level, so then everything else can flow through.
I can confirm with a surety because I've seen it. Pen test, attacking accounts, got a service account also exists in Azure AD. They did all type of stuff on premise. Azure AD didn't do nothing. Didn't see it.
I don't think it actually does. And that's why I was surprised when this person today said that it did. I'm like, I'd like to get more information about it. It could not be provided, but I'm like, you know what? It should do this.
It should, but whenever you want to go back to something, like the old saying in the world, follow the dollars, follow the money, right? It when I say follow the money, I mean, you look at it and the fact that you have to purchase them sort of separately. Actually, I lost my train of thought right now. I had a great analogy and I just lost.
I got my second frustration that you can help me out with. Okay.
We'll run with that. We'll get somebody on. Big shout out to Joanne and Trevor S. We're going to get you back out to talk about this because we don't know.
Good question. Yeah, it's a good use case.
Now, my second frustration for today was it seems like somebody in the know that works with this technology, specifically MDE, has said to some of the people that I work with that timeline with inside MDE is basically out of scope for SC200.
Timeline.
So when you go to a device and it shows the timeline, that's out of scope for SC200. It's not being taught. It's not being tested on. It's not really used.
I know we don't cuss on this podcast, but that's bullshit. You and I had a practical application when you helped me that time, there's a practical application to that. We're like, we need to break on the timeline. We need to know. Because when you don't know when something happened, you have to assume. Right? So something in there should at least say, hey, open up the timeline so you can build together a forensic path to see when things happen. Right?
Around the time, the pivot UTC, around the time that you think things are happening.
But whoever's against this, don't want it because it's too hard for them to convey. That's a deep topic. That's a 508 in the GAT world.
I only breezed through the M365 Defender portion on MS Learn because I really wanted to focus on the other two major topics when we did the competition, but I don't recall the timeline coming up.
It never was.
There's an entire MDE learning path. There's an entire learning path specific to MDE. We take it from the device down to the, down to going onto the machine, doing work on there, the files and everything else. So I know that it's in there.
Okay.
The timeline did change in the UI from from that content was originally written. But yeah, it's definitely in that content.
Yeah, you got to have timeline because you got to have point of intrusion, point of escalation. You need to understand when processes spin up because if you don't have timeline and you don't have a SOC or MSSP, and I'm in a different time zone, I just wait till I know when your major place is off. Let me do my work when everybody's off and do this work, right? I think a lot of people who think that that's not important are still watching old episodes of Mr. Robot. They think that all hackers sit in a room by themselves, and no, that ain't how it works, brother.
So that was my other frustration when I heard that today. That
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't say so. It's fine. I get it. It's just
I put the name in chat for you, by the way.
yeah. And you did. Let
Just
me see.
don't
Let's
say
let's
it.
shame this person
Don't
publicly.
say it. It's fine. Everybody has opinions and can make mistakes. Let's just pump the brakes.
Yeah, I'll be quiet on that one. There'll be too much fallout.
Yeah.
There'll be too much fallout on that. So
It wasn't Rod Trent.
it wasn't Rod Trent. Rod Trent will tell you if he's wrong or don't know something, right? That's
Yeah,
one of the reasons.
he cut out early last week, and I'm like, hey, do you need a sim if you have M365 Defender? don't
I
know if
love
you
that
heard one.
question. Yeah, I love that question. I was listening to that. I was laughing
It-
on my walk
it-
listening to that.
Rod wasn't here to deal with it, so that's
The
why I
answer is
asked
yes
him.
and no.
Well, it depends on what you believe a sim really is.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's transition over to Rod. What are your frustrations for the week?
Or wins. We can keep it
Wins.
positive too. Wins and fails.
What is today?
about that?
Wednesday. But my echo's gone, by the way, right?
Yes, you're killing
Okay,
it. And your video's crisp and your office is looking great, Rod. Keep it up.
Thanks. Super thanks.
Stop lying to him. He's not.
You're
Chris.
great, Brody.
Thank you.
So frustrations this week. Well, I don't know. It's real easy to make frustrations a negative thing. I've been trying more so recently. I think it's more from my wife's prodding to be more positive. Because the older I get, the more grumpy I am. But even today, Frank, that little frustration with that game that we were playing, it's easy to be frustrated in people and situations and things, but there's always something constructive to find in that thing, right? So we had an issue today that was I don't know. In another world, I probably would have bashed somebody, but today it was more or less, hey, if they're having a problem with this, that absolutely means that there's going to be probably a lot of other people that will have a problem with this. So let's just figure out if there's a way to minimize the issues for that one person, which is probably going to help out thousands of people. So that's a frustration thing, I guess.
It's called paying it forward. Something that Edwards learned the lesson about.
Yeah. Had a lot of wins this week though, because this new role I'm in at Microsoft, there's a lot of, I think I mentioned this before, a lot of opportunity, a lot of things opening up. And we'll talk to you all about that today. I hinted at that during a recent AZ update that we might have an actual virtual event for this podcast coming up in the next couple months. And so we're really working steadily toward that. I have a lot of folks on my team and a lot of folks at Microsoft that are excited about something like that. So
my dream is to see all of you guys at night. Come
I know.
down. The American at night, not the Canadian one.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, and I'm new, so they got to send me, right? Like, boss, man, look,
Come on down here, man.
I'm a high
We'll get us a
performer.
booth, a table. We have everybody. I'll even get Mark Ravinovich to come over. Big shout out to
Yeah.
you, Mark. You owe me a favor. You know what it is. I'll get him to come by the table.
I don't think we need to go into that. It might be embarrassing for somebody. I'm not sure.
it would be probably me. But anyway,
That's
But
cool, Rod.
We may be talking about in-person Ignite maybe this summer sometime. So we'll see.
That'd be really cool.
So guys, I know that we're past a half hour. I really want to have this discussion. If we go over about 5 minutes, that'd be fine.
Okay. Yeah, we always end on time here at Microsoft Security Insights podcast. So.
We always show up on time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what my frustration is. I'm so tired, and maybe because when I got introduced to Sentinel back in the day, I had so many other dudes. I really didn't learn anything the correct way. I didn't learn KQL. I knew about KQL way before Sentinel. A guy named Mike Costas at Microsoft said, "Dude, this is the future," and I didn't jump on it because I was so. I used to do what you do, Brody. SNC, AIP, MIP, these things, scanners, scanning, label classification. Then I move over to threat. So I missed that boat about the third time in my career, or fourth, that I missed. This is the prevailing thing, dude. Get on the front wave. So now I'm paddling, trying to catch, right? But what I'm going with is that I got into a situation where we're trying to debate a Sentinel deployment. And that's easy now. Deploy it, you got it there. The architecture is really based on your multi-geographic location, data governance laws, where you can reside logs. You can figure that out. That is so documented now. Let me tell you what has gotten progressively worse here. And my customers are like, when you guys figure it out, come back to me. You're trying to sell me Defender for Cloud. You're trying to sell me MDE. You're trying to tell me I need to put this unified agent on everything, and I need ARC. What about this super agent that you put on that you don't need to put ARC in because it does? And then people are saying, oh, well, yeah, when you deploy Sentinel, you need to put the agent on every device. And my customer, who is very savvy, said, it's BS. You're telling me by default, I need to put, and so that I just keep it here, you guys correct, but when I say AMA, I'm just assuming that this is the one agent to rule them all. I don't know what the new one's called.
It is AMA.
It's AMA.
Yep.
You want me to put AMA on all of my server machines that I already have enrolled in MDE. Why? And then you're telling me that I also need to enroll it in Defender for Cloud. Why? And so there is no real matrix that goes in and shows if I have enrolled my server in MDE because I'm licensed, it's cheap. It's cheaper than Defender for Cloud. $5, right? Why would I want to put this agent on? And if I don't have a distribution mechanism, right? And that's rare. They have SCUM, or they have, SCCM, or they have Intune/MIM. But tell me, what benefit do I get? And what are scenarios that either I deploy the MDE agent or I don't put it on my servers and I put the AMA agent? And if I put the AMA agent on, does it automatically enroll me into Defender for Cloud? Can I not have put Defender for Cloud anywhere and still use the agent and dump it into a log analytics workspace for Sentinel? I know that for a fact to be yes. But I want you guys' perspective, because today the customer was really on point, and you can tell that they had this ready. Why are you telling me that log ingestion is the way? Because the only person I see benefiting for this is Microsoft with all of this. Even with your so-called custom table ingestion, what was it, DSR, DCR, whatever it is, Rod?
DCR.
DCR.
Yep.
Why? Why am I doing this? And if I do this, does it allow me to investigate a hunt better or worse?
So,
and that's on you, right? I'm done with it because it had my hair up on end today. I'm like,
yeah, well, I get it. And the messaging is not spot on right now because of that agent, right? So we have our AMA agent, the MMA agent, or OMS, or whatever you want to call it, is deprecated. What is it? April 2024, or is it August 2024? I forget. Both of them start. One of those months that start with an A. It is deprecated in 2024. I think it is August. So our goal is to get to that agent eventually, right? But most generally, that AMA agent, because of that ARC client requirement currently, that's targeted towards servers. Now, the reason why that you want to do that for servers, and manage servers and workstations devices separately is because of that Arc agent. That Arc agent is the management plane that allows you to manage servers in Azure and servers on-prem in the same conduit, in the same management space, in the same interface. Right?
Or other clouds, right? AWS.
Or other
et cetera.
clouds. Yeah, that ties all of that stuff together. Yes, you can install Arc and AMA on a workstation, but it is cheaper for workstations because we are talking about ingest at this point for workstations to be managed through MMM, Intune, and Defender for Endpoint. Right. So you allow Defender for Endpoint to do its job on the workstations. That stuff is automatically, if you have that connected to Sentinel, it's going to automatically show up in Sentinel. The reason why that we send stuff to Defender for Cloud first is because Defender for Cloud is a recommendation engine. First and foremost, as organizations are migrating and moving workloads from on-prem to the cloud, and the hope here is that, eventually some of those servers with that Arc agent and that AMA agent, they're going to be Azure based eventually anyway. We integrate those into Defender for Cloud because as those workloads get migrated, Defender for Cloud is like standing there like, the compliance guard to say, hey, you could probably have deployed that a little better. You have kind of these gaps, you have these ports open, you probably don't need this. You can either click here to enable that compliance or that policy, or you can choose not to do it if you want to do it. Run things as you've always run them on-prem potentially. But in the same respect, there is that 500 megabytes per device per day allotment for servers that get shuffled into Defender for Cloud. So there's an absolute huge cost savings because you're not literally sending every little bit of log file and data to the cloud at that point. You're just sending the necessary events and things like that to Defender for Cloud. That's going to help us improve, of course, our security score, but also help with those compliance opportunities. Plus, Defender for Cloud has all of those kind of industry compliance, PCI, all the different types of things built into that. So a lot of these organizations, whether you're financial, manufacturing, healthcare, whatever, that compliance information is going to be in there. So as you deploy this stuff, not only is it going to tell you that, you could deploy it more securely, but it's also going to tell you how to deploy that better from a compliance standpoint, so you don't get dinged when the auditor comes in.
Mhm.
On the workstation side, let Defender for Endpoint do its job and connect that to Sentinel. Everything's going to flow into Sentinel, but doing it this way, to me, I've seen the costs and the pricing and stuff like that. This is absolutely a cheaper way to do that. I will tell you, can I tell you this? Let me think about this. No, I can't, but it is cheaper right now to do it this way. Cheaper, and I think probably more comprehensive as far as security solution.
I think that conversation, thank you so much for that. Right. And it sort of validates my thought process and what I won't say rebuttal, but what my talk tracks are going to be. And I think we need to get away from the nitpicky things and get down to a very high level that a CISO, a director, a VP can consume right away so they can make a choice.
Yeah.
Why would I why would I use MDE? Threat hunting. Why would I use Defender for Cloud? Compliance, posture.
Yep.
If you have a compliance regulatory framework that you have to adhere to, and you're just doing a digital transformation or standing stuff up, even if you're using Azure policy as a blueprints, how are you going to keep the auditors off your back when they come?
Or just at least have a paper trail or electronic trail to show them that, hey, we believe we're in compliance, and this is what we're trying to do to get there. So,
And so my frustration is when I get to certain sellers who go in here, they immediately go to the feature sets and try to do both. Well, if you have this, you need this. You don't need both in all instances.
Right, but the other
I would never enroll a Windows team or endpoint interacted by a atypical user into Defender for Cloud. That makes no sense, right? So that's an easy one. If you're onboarding Windows 10 machines, and you can, into Defender for cloud, that makes no sense. But I think
my
that
goodness.
we overcomplicate it. And I got a
And your
matrix I'm doing
pricing at
together.
that point, I've had customers do that and do it against recommendation. They just did it because they wanted to. We just want them all, man. And oh my goodness. And then they were mad at us about the
Mhm.
costs. We told you, but you can't say that to a customer. You just got to say, well, let's just go ahead and fix it.
I ain't fixing nothing.
So I was just talking about SC200 updates about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and specifically asked them to put this grid in the beginning, talking about all the different agents, the different products, so people could actually, connect the dots here, like what you're saying. I don't know if it will go into SC200 or not, but I asked for it. The other thing that I think, Edward, is that, it's like, okay, I've got 3,000 servers, right? Do you put the agent on one? Do you put the agent on all? Do you put the agent on one and do all the event forwarding to that one and then on out the door? So there's a lot more to think about in the area. So what about log collection design for not having an agent on everything?
Well, it's really dependent upon the workload because you could do WEC and WEF, right? But you still need the agent.
Well, and you can do that with AMA. You can't do that.
Yeah,
with
you can do it that way. I think that instead of getting into the feature set, it is to understand what I like. And one of the things that I sort of pin my expertise on is when you're doing this, no matter what SIM you're using, you need to have exercises in log validation, log ingestion validation, and log rationalization. What is the value of me bringing this log in?
Yeah, exactly.
Why am I doing it?
Yep.
What do I miss if I don't take it? I forget who I was talking to in Israel, and they said this 3 years ago. Collection is not detection. Collection is giving a bigger haystack for you to find that needle in. It's much easier to find that needle in a haystack that's waist level than it is over your head. And when you just bring in logs that are just out of this world, and you don't have the ability to parse, disseminate, narrow down what you're doing either by the technology or writing hunting queries or scripts, it can hide in plain sight. I don't know what the right answer is. I think a lot of folks are falling victim to better safe than sorry, and the sellers out there, no matter who they may be for, Microsoft, Logarithm, QRadar, MSSPs, it's in the MSSP's interest to get you to ingest anything that they can, especially if they're charging you on gigabytes ingested, right? I think security has hit a point, and this is a good thing, in its maturity, that now it has to vet the business. How is it good for the business?
Mhm.
You can no longer say you need to be secure. Yes, you now have a budget. CISOs have a budget. You have, so justify this. Why are you doing this now? Well, we need to log all of this. Why? Well, because who told you to? When do we need to start doing it? How long do we need to do it?
I've
And-
got the
and
answer.
so-
I've got the answer for you. Just install sysmon, send everything. It's easy.
I knew you was
Sysmon
gonna
is
say that.
expensive.
I was keeping a time on how long I could do that before you said Sysmon. So,
Sysmon's
but
amazing.
I saw a customer
It's one of the most
deploy.
expensive.
I saw a
engines.
customer deploy. Let me get this right. The MMA agent across 3,000 Windows 10 endpoints. And I won't tell you why they did it because it gets some people in trouble.
Be
But
okay if that was a operations manager environment.
no, that makes it not okay then. So I learned a lot what they were trying to do, and I understood why they did it because they thought it, and then they got the bill.
Yeah.
And they're not used to the bill because the bill keeps coming, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to sit down. I'm going to put something together, and we're going to have a complete talk track about this and go through design scenarios to do this because it is not consistent enough, and the people that are putting the word out to the public are not qualified to do it. They're not.
Rod, what's your point? You look like you got something on your mind.
Here's another piece of that I don't think us as Microsoft sellers understand a lot too. When we talk about the cloud, when we talk about these security types of tools or the security tools, built in the cloud or built for the cloud, we're actually talking to different purse string holders than paid for and knew the cost for the on-prem stuff. So when they see this bill, they're shocked until they talk to those other folks that were paying the bill for the on-prem stuff. And they're like, oh, this is not so bad. I think a lot of times we're talking to different people now and they don't understand. We have to do a better job of explaining and showing where these costs come from and what they were paying before. Include those people that were paying that stuff before as well. So
That's a good point.
Isn't there a workbook for that now?
there is a workbook. It also includes our Sentinel deal thing for the E5A5 stuff. Yeah, it shows, but obviously it's a workbook based on KQL, which I love, but based on KQL. So you actually have to have data for the workbook to work, right? So past your 31-day trial period, you pull up this because nothing costs during a 31-day trial. You pull up this workbook and you're like, holy crap, because now you have data. So it works after the fact. You can still, the workbook's great, but you can still use Azure Cost and Azure Cost tool in Azure to get that stuff kind of more in real time.
Yeah, I think we're so focused on, when I say we as professionals, just try to get the product in play so you can show all the bells and whistles, then do the hard work, which is a consultant to say, let's design this out. This should be a complete, when I consulted, the majority of my hours were front-ended on discovery assessment.
Still like that.
If you do not get that right, customers are not naive to say, okay, sure. In the end, when that bill comes, like, I'm not paying for that over hours. You should have did better discovery. You should have did your due diligence, right? Well, you didn't tell me that. Dude, we gave you a complete 30 days to learn anything about our environment. We made 5 different people available to you. You didn't decide to go out and do this because you're more concerned about getting your widget into my environment. Now eat it, right? I learned quickly in my consulting days to discovery, assessment, and have 2 SOWs. Pre, and once those 2 phases are done, you go back and readdress that SOW again. Because guess what I found? Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you about those other 3 branches. Is that right? Mm-hmm. I forgot to tell you about the upcharge too. Right? How about that? But I think we are. I think we have to get better in the messaging of at least 3 things.
Yep.
And it's all about when, what, and how.
Fair.
When do I put these products in? How do I do it? And when? Well, who, what, when? Well, whatever.
Could we do that? Is that something that we could?
But
So
the problem is
that's a business driver, really.
that's a business driver, because we as technicians and practitioners, we know this. But the sellers are like, man, you're drawing up my sales cycle.
Yep.
The more they have to think about it, they're not going to bite.
Could we
Brody,
do a
do you know
how-to
the
though?
secret is to eating 2 frogs?
What, Ed? I don't know.
Don't look too long at the first frog. There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. And so sellers don't want them looking at the frog too long. Eat this frog.
Yeah,
And
I get this.
before you
I get
grip-
the sales angle. Yeah, totally. But like, could we as educators on this type of technology and these solutions demonstrate to the community the preferred or recommended methods as an education piece to help whomever wants to be to view this? That's something that
According to
we
what
could do.
camp you in, you're now leveraging the customer against your sellers by making them too educated. Dude, this is a vicious circle.
You know
Right.
what? I respect everybody who's a seller, but why don't we just educate people? Why don't we just educate everybody on all the capabilities? I think Microsoft's done a fantastic job in the last few years of having everything out in the open public domain. Like we're not hiding behind the paywall for any of our stuff. We've got free training, ample documentation. It's consistently and rigorously checked against the latest and great. I don't see any
No,
point in
I-
hiding stuff from customers. That doesn't make any sense.
I think you can set up a grid like what we talked about, but you still have to take in a lot of considerations for the customer. They might not be allowed to install agents on machines, right?
Fair.
So what
fair.
does that mean? So I think you can set up a grid about what's what, where, when to use, and then it's up to the customer or the consultants involved to help them figure out how they're going to go about doing it. Rod disagree.
I'll throw a big wrench into it too. So that matrix would be super awesome, but there's still going to be caveats, right?
Of course.
Because
yeah.
AMA, there's no functionality for Defender for Cloud. It works a little bit or mostly for Sentinel, but doesn't work for Defender for Cloud yet. I mean, it's in private preview, but so customer says, okay, we're going to deploy AMA on all our servers. Well, it works for Sentinel, but it doesn't work for Defender for Cloud. Now, what do we do? So there's going to be caveats.
Well, that's the thing that's what you need to have in the grid to explain to them what their options are. I don't see that out there today.
Yeah, fair.
And that's the thing that I was pushing to have added to SC200.
Hey, so when you have a customer who says we can't have agents running, so in your experiences, do customers, we know the term is it's built into the OS, but do you have customers who feel that enabling Defender for Endpoint is an agent, or do they truly understand that it's a part of it's a service or a feature of the OS that's just being enabled, that's embedded into the kernel?
That is
Well,
an excellent observation. And that is an
work?
easier frog to eat. When you can explain that it's built into the OS, all you're doing is enabling it. They're like, oh, okay. Because to them, that's one less thing on that endpoint that's slowing it down that I got to troubleshoot, that I have to consider.
And it's a selling point, right? Versus competitors.
Absolutely. It's built into the OS. And when the OS is updated, I would assume that thing is updated, right? Whatever it is.
It's supposed to be automatically. Yeah. Because I sometimes have that challenge with MDI, right? Oh, you want an agent on my domain controller as well. That's against, and we've had that talk, months ago on this pod. Customers are actually pretty open right now these days to the sensors, the modern sensor directly on the DC method as opposed to the old standalone method. But I talk about that with Defender for Endpoint often with customers. Hey, this is built into the OS. There's no agent. There's no add-on. Like obviously for Windows, right? For Windows operating systems, not for the other ones that we support. But that's a key one. I kind of got on the tangent there, but I was curious if you ever had folks that are like, oh, it's technically an agent, because it's like it's not, right? It's built in. So
it's built in. I think that the general education level of everyone out there to understand that Defender and MDE are sort of inherent to it. You're just enabling certain tags, flags, keys to be able to do it. And all of a sudden different services will manifest in services and task manager. Because truly unless I'm totally missing something, you are not asking them to figure out what their agent deployment methodology is.
The enablement of said service, you have to figure out that methodology, right? Whether it's group policy or endpoint manager, SCCM, the enablement, but not the deployment necessarily. The enablement.
I would say, yeah, you're right. The enablement of it can be handled by Intune, MIM, SCIM.
SCIM.
Right.
Is that even a thing? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
SCIM.
SCIM. Yeah.
A SCUM, because you got SCIM and SCUM, right?
Right.
And so there are ways to get it done that have been proven. I mean, SCIM and SCUM have been around for 15 years.
SCCM's been around since 1992.
So Brody won't
I was
get
7.
this because it used to be called SMS
Yeah.
back in the day.
Wow, you guys are so smart.
If you were SMS
Old.
guy, you were good.
It's old, not smart, Brody. It's
Yeah.
old.
It's wizened. How about that?
Wizened. New word. Thank you. Today I learned new word.
You're welcome.
Wizened. Well, it's an interesting topic. I'd love to know more about different scenarios, recommendations, and yeah, of course, every organization is going to have a unique business
Oh,
case,
cool.
but
Mhm.
you just explaining that question and breaking it down, made me very curious in terms of what recommendations would be in a broad sense under normal circumstances.
That was
So
1994, by the way. I forgot.
94. Wow.
Oh, okay.
I
So
don't want to leave that
Perfect.
wrong. So.
Rod,
Yeah.
if you pop me an
Fact
email,
check.
I'll send you guys some interesting slide decks that I'm putting together so you have a library of reference sources that you can go to that at least allow you to have a cleanup conversation in the event that the people before you went out and totally messed it up. I don't want to say sellers,
Yeah.
but if someone went out and once they get incorrect information, but didn't address the unique, adoption scenarios, it'll like, hey, this is why. I was looking for something I was about to create and I found it's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Some few changes I put in. So pop me an email, Rod. I'll send it over to you guys. And I also got a slide deck put together, made that talks about this whole MDI versus AMA or whatever the thing is called now. Unified agent, one ring to rule them all. Who knows? We'll send this out. And I think you guys will find value in that to be able to see that. I
Absolutely.
need to shave. I
On the
look
talk
bad.
track, it starts out, I'm sorry, insert name here, screwed it up for you.
Yes. Yes. I'm tough. I can take it.
The sales process is interesting, right? It starts with your like high level initial seller, but then that architect is supposed to come in, that pre-sales architect is supposed to come in at one point and really start providing context to the belief that we can assist in those areas. And then at that level, it should really start to be ironed out in terms of what maybe you may need and how. And then based on that, then the consultants come in if it's signed and actually determine the nuts and bolts, right?
So
We're
let me give
all
you
sellers.
we're all sellers. So let me give you guys
Yes, the
something
different
that,
levels,
that has hampered our ability to show our true value. Travel. Because when you can get in front of that customer on the whiteboard
Oh yeah.
and everybody gets to brainstorm and come up there with their, when I do sessions, everybody gets a different color marker at the beginning of my week-long session. So when you write something in red, I'm like, I have a key code. Red was Brody, the troublemaker.
Yeah.
So if I see a bunch of red on the thing, I like green is Frank because he likes money. Blue is, Rod because he wants everybody to be happy. And
Blue.
Ed is
Blue, the color of happiness. Yeah. The yellow doesn't look good on a
Tears is
whiteboard.
what that is. Yeah.
So what I would do that, and I would have a box of things and say, everybody gets a color. So as we write comments and everything else, rather than me trying to figure out who wrote in black, I know this guy wrote it here. And I would take everybody's name. Brody,
Fair.
you're yellow
Fair.
today. Edward, so and so. So everybody had that thing. And as they wrote on the board, I knew who exactly did it. And it allowed me to go back and say, oh, I see where he was coming from because he owns this thing. And this person owns this thing. And so when I got my notes together, I can also tell you who was the most engaged by how much of that color was on the board.
My printing's terrible, but I would love to be in front of customers again. Absolutely. Doing
Mhm.
everything in PowerPoint. It's not
And take
ideal.
a picture. Yeah.
And take a picture
every day.
Yeah, with
Because I came into a
Office
room
Lens.
one day, the
Great app
conference room
for
was
that.
ours for the week. Remember that commercial with Geico and it was already erased. What do they do? Right. So that's it.
Yeah.
But this is something I think warrants another discussion. But instead of coming in with opinions, we come in with here's what we found in the documentation, here's how we interpret it. And then once we're able to get on Streamboat and be able to show our videos and do all this stuff, we'll be good to go, right?
And then you can write a book on it and it'll be out of date the moment you publish it.
I'm not writing books, brother.
Yeah.
Come to the podcast. All of our materials in the metaverse.
Oh boy, here we go.
We got to.
We have a virtual meetup where we all have different avatars.
Yeah.
Hey, Rod, I'm still waiting for my coffee mugs. What's the deal?
Me too, Rod. Where's my coffee mug? I just ordered it 2 days ago. It should be here. I live in
2
Canada.
days ago.
Yeah.
I got mine.
I got confirmation that there was a person that went through the contest. One in the Netherlands, one in Africa somewhere. Well, they've all received them already. So it did take a couple weeks, but
Cool.
I
Yeah,
got notification that it shipped like
all
a
right.
week after I ordered. So
Which one did you get?
which one did I get? Really?
Yeah. Hey, did you see the new one? Did you see the new one out there?
It's
You must
hilarious.
not learn KQL mug.
Maybe I got the Microsoft Security Insights podcast mug.
That's the one I got.
Oh, is that still out there?
You don't even need KQL. You can just use the UI. Just click around.
Somebody asked me today. Hopefully they're not listening. They said, "I love your series. It's really helpful. But have you ever thought about natural language for searching? KQL could be the back end, but can we create a natural language query?"
Oh, Edward is now transformed into a robot. Edward
Is a transformer.
is a transformer now. Natural language, Rod? Like I'm not the biggest developer. I tried it as a career path at one point coming out of college. Didn't work out, but it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's some sections of it that are confusing, like the joining. I need to learn that, but it's pretty straightforward once you learn it.
I know. I just
I think-
want to use Bing for searching for hunting. So
I think Edward's wife
Find
pulled the
attacker.
plug on him. What do you think? It's time for dinner. Let's go.
Yeah, I
Pull him
guess.
out. All right.
yeah.
I think we'll end it here. So until next week.
Oh, by the way, Frank, we need to get like an ending audio thing for our podcast.